Power is not asked for, it is taken. That disturbs people because it directly conflicts with the very first reflex you ever learned, the reflex to wait, to hope, to place yourself low and look upward with the idea that someone will notice, appreciate, and reward you. This waiting is not a conscious choice. It is a program, an old one, an effective one. And that is precisely why it is exploited without mercy. When you ask for something, you are not merely making a request, you are transmitting a truth about your position. You are saying, without words, that you do not control the outcome, that you need an external decision, that you accept the hierarchy in its current form. This is not a moral judgment, it is a structural observation. Power does not interpret intentions, power reads positions. Most people do not lose because they are weak, they lose because they are visible in their weakness. Emotionally open, reactive, easy to anticipate, they believe transparency is a virtue. In reality, transparency is an invitation to manipulation. Whoever can read your emotions can control your decisions, not because they are more intelligent, but because you give them the information for free. From the beginning, you were told that the world runs on clear rules, that there are procedures, that if you follow them, you will arrive where you are supposed to. This narrative is not false, it is incomplete. The rules exist, but they are not for everyone. They are a filtering mechanism. Those who follow them without questioning remain inside them. Those who learn when to ignore them advance. Power is not distributed equally and never has been, not because people are unfair, but because human structures reward specific behaviors. Initiative without permission, calm under pressure, the ability to occupy space without asking for it. These traits are not encouraged publicly, they are tolerated privately and used strategically. When you look closely, you see that those who ask rarely get what they want. They get small concessions, compromises, delays. Those who take do not ask for explanations. They create facts, and facts force the system to adapt, not the other way around. Systems do not change because someone asked nicely. They change because someone made change inevitable. There is a deep fear associated with the idea of taking. Fear of consequences, fear of rejection, fear of being perceived as aggressive. This fear is cultivated early, because people who are not afraid are difficult to manage. They cannot be motivated by vague promises. They cannot be stopped by social disapproval. They operate by a different set of rules. Biologically, you are built to avoid social risk. Exclusion activates the same circuits as physical pain. The brain does not distinguish between them. That is why the mere possibility of rejection makes you self-censor. To shrink yourself, to ask instead of assert, to wait instead of act. This mechanism was vital when survival depended on the group. Today, it is a break. Those who understand this do not rush to say it out loud. They have no interest in disabling a mechanism that works in their favor. They let the masses believe that patience is strategy, that modesty is power, that waiting will be rewarded. Meanwhile, they move the pieces, slowly, without noise, without explanations. True power does not manifest through constant domination. That is a caricature. Real power is seen in who sets the pace, who decides when a conversation begins and when it ends, who can refuse without offering reasons, who can remain silent without losing status. These are the signals the brain recognizes instantly, even if it cannot explain them. When you begin to notice these details, something breaks in your perception. You start to see how much of daily interaction is positioning games. Who speaks too much, who justifies themselves, who laughs too quickly, who rushes to be liked. Every gesture tells a story, and the story is read, not heard. Those who ask for power automatically place themselves in an inferior position because they accept that someone else decides. Those who take do not announce it, they do not explain. They act as if the decision has already been made. And most people comply not because they are convinced, but because they avoid friction. Friction requires energy. Submission is cheaper. Taking does not mean forcing. Force is loud and attracts resistance. Taking means reducing other people's options until the alternative becomes obvious. It is an art of invisible constraint, of context, of timing, of silence. Whoever understands this does not need to raise their voice, does not need to threaten. The situation speaks for them. As you internalize this logic, you begin to feel a subtle discomfort because you realize how many decisions in your life were not truly yours. They were reactions, adjustments, compromises made from reflex, not from strategy, not because you were forced, but because you asked, and the asking bound you. This is only the first crack. It changes nothing yet. It only exposes. Like when a light turns on in a room where you have been in the dark for a long time. You do not see everything immediately, but you know you can no longer pretend it is not there. Power is not asked for, it is taken. And once this idea begins to settle, your old reflexes become visible. And what becomes visible can no longer rule in silence. After you see the first crack, you can't fully go back, not because you've become stronger, but because you've become more attentive. Attention changes everything. You begin to notice how your emotions are deliberately triggered, how certain reactions are expected from you, how shame, guilt, and the desire for validation don't appear by accident, but are activated at precise moments. Power does not press directly, it presses buttons. And most of those buttons are emotional. Shame is one of the most effective tools of control, not because it hurts, but because it makes you self-correct. When you feel shame, there is no longer a need for an external guard. You become your own supervisor. You adjust your behavior before anyone asks. You limit your ambitions before they become visible. Power loves shame because it is silent and cheap. It requires no force, only suggestion. Validation works in the opposite direction, but with the same result. When you receive approval, the brain quickly learns which behavior was rewarded. It repeats, it conforms, it aligns, not because it is convinced, but because it has been conditioned. The alternation between validation and its withdrawal creates dependence, and dependence is fertile ground for control. Whoever can offer or withdraw approval can shape your behavior. Most people believe they are independent in thought. In reality, they react to subtle social signals, tones, looks, silences, the absence of a response. These micro-interactions dictate far more than official speeches. Power does not need to say you are not allowed. It is enough to create a context in which not being allowed is felt. When you ask, you expose yourself to this mechanism. You place yourself in a position where the other person's response becomes decisive. A yes calms you temporarily. A no destabilizes you. A maybe keeps you suspended. Regardless of the outcome, control is no longer with you. It is in your reaction to the decision, and that reaction is almost always emotional. Those who understand the dynamic do not rush to respond. They leave space. Space creates pressure. Pressure makes others reveal themselves, speak too much, negotiate against themselves. Silence is not absence, it is a tool, one that works only if it is not used desperately, only if it is natural. Notice who feels uncomfortable in silence, who fills the gaps with explanations, who feels the need to constantly clarify. These are the easiest to guide because they cannot tolerate uncertainty, and whoever controls uncertainty controls direction. No malicious intent is required. It is simply a consequence of human psychological structure. As you stop reacting immediately, something interesting happens. People project. They fill the lack of information with assumptions. Some favorable, others not. But all of them are theirs. You are no longer the source. You become the surface onto which their own insecurities are reflected. This is a subtle position of power because it consumes no energy. Emotional control does not mean the absence of emotions. It means the absence of urgency. Emotions arise, they are observed, but they do not dictate action. This internal distance is rare, and that is precisely why it is interpreted as authority. Not because others admire you, but because they cannot fully read you, and what cannot be read cannot be anticipated. Those who rely on emotional manipulation become powerless in front of someone who does not react according to the script. Compliments no longer work, provocations no longer trigger, guilt no longer presses, not because they are ineffective in general, but because they require participation. And you no longer participate automatically. This is an internal change, not an external one. It is not immediately visible, but its effects accumulate. You begin to choose when to speak, when to withdraw, when to act without announcement. This selectivity creates the impression of control, and impressions in power dynamics are almost as important as facts. Many confuse this position with coldness. It is not. Coldness is a defensive mask. Control is calm. You do not reject emotion. You let it pass without turning it into a decision. This ability allows you to see the games before they begin, to recognize when someone is trying to rush you, to flatter you, to provoke you. Once seen, these attempts lose their force. Power does not need haste. Haste belongs to those who fear they will lose something. Whoever knows they can take later does not rush. This lack of urgency is contagious. It slows others down. It makes them adjust to your rhythm without realizing it, without being asked. At this point, you begin to understand that most conflicts are not about real objectives. They are about status, about who yields first, who explains, who justifies themselves, who feels the need to be understood. When you give up the need to be understood, you gain freedom, because you are no longer bound to others' perceptions. Taking power at this level does not involve dramatic actions. It involves withdrawing from predictable patterns. It involves no longer offering the expected reaction. It involves letting others expose themselves while you remain constant. This constancy is destabilizing for those accustomed to controlling through emotional stimulation. As pressure increases, it becomes clear that not everyone will react well to this change. Some will become hostile, others confused, others will try to pull you back into the old role, not out of malice, but because your change affects their balance. People prefer predictability, even when it does not favor them. Here, a silent decision appears. You either continue to ask to maintain apparent harmony, or you begin to take, accepting the tension that comes with it. There is no stable middle ground. Neutrality is temporary. Systems adjust, always. This is the stage where many stop, because internal pressure becomes uncomfortable, because silence begins to feel heavy, because old reflexes demand to be reactivated. But if you stay, if you do not give in, if you let this state stabilize, something settles. It is not euphoria, it is not triumph, it is a cold clarity. An understanding that your emotions have long been used as levers, and that withdrawing them from the game completely changes the dynamic. Power did not come from outside. It was taken through non-participation. This is not the end. It is only the point where the game begins to reveal itself for what it is. Once your emotions are no longer easy to move, a deeper change appears. It is not immediately visible, but it is felt by those around you, by the systems you are part of, by the structures that until then read you effortlessly. For the first time, you are no longer completely transparent, and the lack of transparency creates tension. Tension is the language through which status begins to realign. Status is not decided through declarations. No one officially announces who is above. Status is negotiated constantly in micro moments. Who interrupts, who waits, who allows themselves to be late, who allows themselves to leave first, who speaks without being invited, who stays silent without being penalized. These details seem trivial, but the brain processes them automatically and draws conclusions. Fear plays a central role in this dynamic. Not obvious fear, not fear of physical danger, but fear of losing position, of influence, of control. Most people are not afraid of being hurt. They are afraid of becoming irrelevant. They are afraid of no longer mattering. This fear makes them react disproportionately when they sense the balance shifting. When you no longer ask, when you no longer seek confirmation, when you no longer rush to repair tension, you transmit a dangerous signal to those accustomed to running the game. You show them that you no longer depend on their mechanisms. You don't tell them, you show them. And this is far more destabilizing than any direct confrontation. Some will try to test your limits. They will create ambiguous situations. They will launch subtle provocations. They will make jokes that demand a reaction, not because they despise you, but because they are trying to measure your position. If you react emotionally, the game returns to its familiar form. If you remain constant, the game changes, and change is frightening. Real power is not seen in the ability to win conflicts. It is seen in the ability to avoid them without losing position, to leave things unsaid, to not correct immediately, to not enter every provocation. This restraint is interpreted as superiority, not because it is intentional, but because it is rare. Those who are used to dominating through emotional pressure rely on your reaction. Without it, they are left without tools. Then two possibilities appear. Either they intensify the pressure, or they retreat. Both are signs that the balance has shifted. Regardless of direction, control is no longer exclusively theirs. Silent positioning is the most stable form of power. It does not provoke open resistance. It does not attract unnecessary attention. It does not create martyrs. It installs itself slowly, through consistency, through the absence of explanations, through the fact that you feel no need to prove anything. Proof is for those who are still negotiating. At this point, it becomes evident that many social rules are fragile conventions. They function only as long as everyone participates. When someone withdraws from the ritual, others are forced to adapt. There are no clear sanctions for someone who does not play, but also does not break the rules. This gray zone is the space where power moves. Taking does not mean breaking obvious laws. It means exploiting ambiguity, acting where rules are unclear, occupying the space between what is permitted and what is forbidden. Most avoid this space because it is uncomfortable, because it offers no moral guidance, but it is precisely there that decisive moves are made. As your status changes, relationships readjust. Some cool off, others become more respectful, some disappear. This is not a failure. It is a filter. Relationships based on your emotional reaction cannot survive when the reaction disappears. Those based on positioning stabilize. There is a subtle moment when you realize you are no longer being constantly evaluated, that you no longer feel the pressure to perform for others, not because you have become invisible, but because you have become difficult to categorize. Systems prefer clear categories. When they cannot easily classify you, they treat you with caution. Caution is a form of respect, not an emotional one, a strategic one. People become more careful about what they say around you, more calculated, less impulsive, not because they perceive you as threatening, but because they can no longer use you as an emotional reference point. Without your reaction, they lose orientation. This is the phase where the temptation to use this position appears, to provoke, to test, to dominate visibly. But this is a trap. Excessive visibility attracts resistance. Power that displays itself becomes a target. Power that remains silent becomes structure. The difference is essential. Those who understand this limit their movements, not because they are afraid, but because they know that every action sends a signal, and unnecessary signals weaken position. They carefully choose when to intervene and when to let things resolve on their own. This economy of action is interpreted as maturity, as authority. The fear of others is not exploited directly. It is allowed to exist. People fear what they cannot control, and you become a variable. Not an explicit threat, just a presence that cannot be fully anticipated. This is enough. At this stage, it becomes clear that power is not a destination. It is a dynamic state. It must be maintained through consistency, through the absence of impulsive reaction, through refusal to return to old patterns. Any deviation is observed, any weakness is tested, not out of malice, but out of nature. There is no complete rest in this position. There is only relative stability. But stability is preferable to emotional chaos because it allows you to see ahead, to anticipate, to choose. This capacity is the true difference between those who ask and those who take. As pressure continues to rise, a final adjustment appears, an internal one, the most difficult, letting go of the need to be validated even by yourself. Because as long as you seek confirmation, the game is not over. This is the edge. From here on, it is no longer about others. It is about you and your ability to remain constant in a world that reacts. At this point, there is nothing left to prove, not to others, not to yourself. The game did not end with a visible victory, but with a shift in state. This is the part most people never understand. They look for the moment when power feels like an explosion, like confirmation, like an event. But real power does not arrive with sound, it arrives with absence. The absence of need, the absence of haste, the absence of reaction. At first, this absence can feel empty, because for years you were fueled by stimulation, by feedback, by emotional tension, by waiting. When all of that withdraws, silence remains, and silence is uncomfortable for those who have never sat with it, not because it is dangerous, but because it offers no distractions, no excuses, no story. In that silence, you begin to see how few things were truly necessary, how many reactions were automatic, how many conflicts were unnecessary, how many decisions were made only to calm a state, not to advance a position. Emotion has not disappeared, but it no longer leads. It is present, but it is not at the wheel. That is the difference. Power at this level is no longer about others. It is no longer about domination or direct influence. It is about internal sovereignty, about no longer being pushed from within by impulses that demand immediate resolution. When nothing rushes you, time begins to work for you, and time is one of the most underestimated forms of power. Those around you can feel the change, but they cannot name it. There is no clear gesture, no memorable line. There is only a cold consistency, a lack of urgency, a presence that seeks nothing. This is the most difficult position to attack because it offers no grip points. It does not ask, it does not reject, it simply exists. At this stage, the temptation to explain disappears. Not because you have intentionally become mysterious, but because explanation no longer serves any purpose. Those who understand, understand without it. Those who do not would not have been convinced anyway. Power does not try to be understood. Understanding is for those who are still negotiating meaning. There is no longer a need for direct confrontation. Conflicts dissolve before they form. Not because the world has become kinder, but because your position no longer offers friction. Without friction, fire does not ignite. People redirect their energy to where reaction is guaranteed. You are no longer that place. This is the phase where emotional reactions begin to feel primitive. Not condemnable, just rudimentary. Like a crude tool in a system that demands precision. Anger, indignation, exaggerated enthusiasm lose their appeal. Not because you could no longer feel them, but because you see their cost. The cost in energy, the cost in position, the cost in clarity. Clarity is not pleasant, it is neutral. It cuts illusion without offering comfort, but that is precisely why it is stable. It does not fluctuate with your mood. It does not depend on others' reactions. It does not need external validation. It is there even when no one is watching, especially then. You understand now that asking was a form of delegated hope, the hope that someone would decide in your favor. Taking, instead, is full assumption, including the risk, including the silence that follows, including the fact that you will not be applauded. Power does not promise comfort, it promises control. And control is cold. There's no longer a desire to convince. Convincing is for those who want permission. When you know you can take, you no longer invest energy in unnecessary persuasion. Your actions become fewer, but more decisive. Every movement is calculated not for emotional impact, but for structural effect. This economy of movement is visible to those who are attentive. In the end, there is no feeling of triumph. What remains is a calm weight, an anchoring, a kind of internal stability that cannot be easily shaken. Not because you are invulnerable, but because you no longer react to every stimulus as if it were a threat. You choose, and choice changes everything. Power did not come from a spectacular gesture. It came from the gradual withdrawal of emotion from decision, from the refusal to ask, from accepting the fact that no one will offer what is not taken. This acceptance is not cynical. It is lucid, and the lucid do not ask permission to exist. At this point, you no longer need to move much. The world adjusts around you. Not because you force it, but because systems always seek stable points. And you have become one, not through noise, not through aggression, but through the absence of unnecessary reaction. Everything closes here, without motivational conclusions, without promises, just with a different state, slower, heavier, clearer. Emotions are still there, but they no longer lead. They are observed, allowed to pass, without haste. Power is not asked for, it is taken, and once taken, you no longer feel the need to speak about it.